Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I know this is kind of confusing a little bit because we have a show scheduled for Kevin Barrett at this moment, and so we're in another show platform. I mean, we're on the same platform, but we're in another show being broadcasted. Okay, I just got an emergency alert from Kevin. He hit me up and he said something's going on in his family. It's an emergency, so he wanted to reschedule. So we're going to try. I just put a date in, one of the 3 days that he said that we could reschedule. And so the date is not that date for that show would either be uh, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week or Monday of next week. But I understand all of the things that happen out of the blue. I'm glad he alerted me of it, and so I'm alerting you of it. And also, I still haven't got my monetization back from YouTube, and still no explanation why it was taken. So I just want to let you know that. And I didn't want to leave you guys high and dry without an explanation of the show, um, because I could have just easily changed the show and skipped out and then explained it later. But I wanted to give you some information. So while we're on the air, we might as well chop it up a little bit, right? What's the latest news? But before we get into the latest news, I'm telling you, this is crazy, right? So we've been hit by multiple storms, right? And it looks like there's another one on the way. It's about to start. So down in this area where I'm from, but I'm telling you that you say, well, what does that have to do with the show? Well, it has a lot to do with the show because power on, power out. We're right now we're on backup, so we're on solar. So if the power goes out, that is because of that. We still have the neighborhood still hasn't regained all of its power from the tornadoes or whatever. But I see a lot of things going on, and I see somebody in the chat already. So all right. So this is my guy, Astro Atmosphere. Hold on one second. Let me get into the dash. Let's see. Hold on one second, and we're going to chop up the news a little bit, okay? And I thank you for asking. So I'll put it up there. Let me get in the. So I'm doing all of this on the fly, so everybody check this out. And I want to bring some things to your attention also too. It made me chuckle a little bit, and I was talking to my mom about it on the phone last night when she and I were holding a conversation. And we're going to get into the news, but Astro Atmosphere asks, "How are you? Hey, how are you? I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about the tornadoes and thousands of dead fish in the ocean in Houston, heat spike and so-called alien appearances. Or there's some kind of signs? Yes, yes. We're in the end. You all you have to do is go look back on one of my shows. What was the show that I did? Welcome to the Apocalypse. The show Welcome to Apocalypse. Welcome to the Apocalypse. You go back and listen to that show, and I talk about where we are and why we're here. A lot of people they just dismiss the judgment when they look at the geopolitical situation, when they look at the economic situation. They look at it from with the eyes of just the average person that is being fed the average news. They don't look at it in reference to scripture. They don't look at it in reference to something greater happening and someone greater orchestrating all these things. See, one thing I learned about dealing with people is this: when it's bad news, they don't want to hear it, especially when it's concerning them. They don't want to hear it. So you have to ease the news into them. You just can't come in and just tell them blah 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 blah. This is because of this, and you can't. You have to break down the news, right? You have to break down the world events, and then you have to because when you break down the news and you break down the world events, you break down their resistance to truth. And as you break down their resistance to truth, then you can give them that theological perspective of why all of these things are taking place and why they're happening right now. There's no coincidence that we're looking at the greatest economic meltdown in the history of not just America, but the world right now. At the same time, all of the nations are headed to war. There's no agreement anywhere. We see the spike in certain areas of the heat index. We see the drop in temperatures in certain areas. All these things are not by chance. And a lot of people don't like to hear this because they have these notions in their head that okay, my nation will bounce back, or this will happen, but they don't sit down and they don't analyze why these things are happening. When we look at America, let's give it something. America has never apologized for any of the wrong she's done, and when she apologizes, it's a half-hearted apology. She never put it like this. Let me give you an analogy. A person that has raped and robbed their whole life, right? They go before a judge and they say, well, I'm sorry that I did it. Now, they get a little time, they get out of jail, and they go do the same thing, and they go right before that judge and say the same thing. Then they get out of jail, right? And they do the same thing. Now, they're looking for mercy, but they haven't shown any contrition of heart. They haven't shown any willingness to change their actions or modify their actions and to do what's incumbent upon them to be accepted as a productive member of society and to try to rebound from the illness that they have suffered mentally and spiritually and physically. They just continue to go on their robbing, killing, and raping spree. A person does that. Do you forgive them? Right? That person goes into a school and just shoots up everybody, right? Will you forgive them? Will you have contrition in your heart for them that showed no contrition of heart? Well, when we look at that, you'll say, no, common sense tells me no. Common sense tells me no, because they haven't really shown. The only reason they're apologizing because they have been backed into a corner in the court system, and they want a little mercy so that once they serve their term, they can get out and do it again. Well, this is the same thing with America and the Western world. They have, listen, in the midst of an economic collapse, in the midst of social decay, in the midst of civil strife and insurrection within her own borders, America is still holding people, suppressing people within her own borders, within her own cities. America is still going around the world threatening and bombing and overthrowing and destabilizing and stealing and robbing and pillaging and occupying. Now, on one end, we look and we say, they say, well, we're for peace and we're for freedom. I often say this, right? Don't judge what they say alone. Judge the actions that follow what they say. And if you continually are robbing, raping, bombing, stealing, occupying, lying, overthrowing, destabilizing, how can I have mercy in my heart for you when you have no mercy in your heart for your own people and the people around the globe? See, we don't like to examine stuff like that. We don't like, because we have bought into this mantra of the American dream. The Western world is the dominant. The Western world is this and this and that. This is what they do. But when we deconstruct this and we look at this through the eyes of a unbiased, right, an unbiased, knowledgeable person, we see a social construct of pillaging, murdering, robbing, and stealing. America's domestic policies are a reflection of her international policies and vice versa. What is she doing to show you in America? She's armed her police force to the T. Now, listen to this. For those of you who think I might be trying to down the police department, all right? For those of you who may be thinking I'm trying to just down the government, right? Let's look at this. She's armed her police force. She's arming her military. She's deploying her police forces. She's deploying her military. Her police forces exercise unrestrained power in certain communities, certain areas. America's military exercises unrestrained power in certain regions of the world without care, without regard to the culture, to the differences, to the experiences of those people. It's a reflection. This is what I'm telling you. There's no doubt about this. So it's not just exclusive to America. You can look at Great Britain. You can look at France. You can look at Germany. You can look at all of these nations in the Western world, and they reflect that same mind state. If they didn't, let me get to something real quick. It's something that I just want to just drop on before we get into the news. Okay, for all of the democracy and the human rights, right, and the values, they love to talk about our values and our way of life. Well, what kind of values and what kind of morals and what kind of way of life that you truly have when you have to pillage and rob others to maintain your life? That's a parasitic life. That is the way of the Western world. That is the way of the Western world. They pillage, they rob, they steal, they lie. And then when you confront them on it, because it's an inconvenient truth, you become aggressive. You become the tyrant. You become the dictator, and they are the victim. All the while, they're raping, robbing, pillaging, stealing, occupying, and bombing. All you are doing is asking the questions that exposes the actions, and you become the belligerent one. You become a national security threat. You become a threat to the people, and they try to discredit you. They'll lie on you. They'll set you up. They'll bring up your past. But when you bring up the past of these nations, oh, that was in the past. Yet they judge everybody by their past. Their judicial system is built on the past. When you're in a courtroom and you're talking to the judge is looking down, looking at your bio. And he's reading through and he's marking and highlighting things as he's asking you questions. You can see it on court TV. You can see it everywhere. They judge you. They'll say, I understand what you're saying, but according to the law, you had X amount of priors on this. So according to the guidelines that regulate this particular crime, I must sentence you to this much amount of time. But when it comes to them, oh, you can't believe that. That was back then. Can't we all forgive and get along? The hypocrisy of the West is astonishing. And nobody calls them out on it. You know why? Because almost everybody that does the mainstream and alternative media, they benefit from it. And when you benefit from the crime, you're less likely to call out the criminal and the crime. That's how that goes. Astro Atmosphere says, the U.S. got hacked big time and got less than 7 days before they sell the info to enemy nations. Yeah, I saw something like that, and I asked some informed people about the hack because something wasn't sitting well with me, and because they were talking about the Chinese did it. At first, it was the Iranians, and then the story morphed into the Russians to put pressure on Russia. And then it finally morphed into the Chinese did it, or the North Koreans. I haven't heard much on the North Koreans did, but it morphed into the Chinese. Now, I don't know how much credence or credit to put behind that, because whenever America tries to put pressure on a nation, or she's building towards a policy plan, she does things like that. She'll and this is not it's conspiracy. Sometimes she will use false flag tactics to advance her underlining policy issue. Like when they were talking about the leaks, right? Earlier in the year, they was talking about these leaks, and these leaks were pointing towards the CIA doing this and the U.S. government doing this. And I didn't comment too much about it because I wasn't buying the story. Because I know if the CIA leaks are coming out and the media is reporting them, remember that these like the Washington Post and the New York Times and the LA Times and all, these are instruments of government power. And if they are hyping this up and they are focused on that, then they got the okay by the government, whether it's the CIA or one of the alphabet intelligence agencies, or whether it was the White House. They've gotten the go ahead to do this, which means that it may look bad for a minute, but later on it'll benefit the White House. When the leaks happened, they were talking all of this nonsense, and now guess what happens? America justifies the bombing of the pipeline, and then she exonerates herself through the leaks, and now the leaks are pointing towards Ukraine, and we know that Ukraine cannot and does not do anything without U.S. intelligence and U.S. Pentagon. So what she wants to do is put the pressure on because she was catching so much heat. Think about how many times her story morphed when we were talking about the bombing of Nord Stream. Think about that. And the leaks, it looked like they were coming to hammer the White House and the Pentagon down, but in reality, it was a curveball. And now they're focused on, everybody pushed the story about these so-called lone assailants on a sailboat that bombed it. Everybody, and the story kept morphing. And now the leaks, the CIA officials say that Ukrainian operatives did it. Well, who control? Someone should ask, well, who controls Ukraine? The United States has an intelligence bureau inside the SBU, the Ukrainian Intelligence Bureau. The United States monitors everything on Ukrainian soil from satellites. The United States runs all of the government officials in Ukraine. They fund the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian military gets their salary from the United States and the West. And you're telling me that you had no idea that the bombing was going to take place? You're telling me that you had no idea that this covert operation was underway? Now, because of the leaks, America is building up a case for plausible deniability because the backlash that she was given by not just Russia, and not by the Eastern Bloc, but the citizens of America and the citizens of Europe didn't believe it either. So she had to find a way to exonerate herself and exonerate the NATO terrorist organization and put the blame on her puppet. Now, think about this. The puppet puts the hand under the skirt of a woman. And when the woman slaps the puppet and looks at the puppeteer, the puppet, oh, I didn't do it. I had no idea that the puppet was going to do it. Yet you are dangling the puppet with the strings. Now you make that make sense for America to be able to exonerate herself from this. See, I don't buy into the lies. You got to come with more for me to, and I don't react. I'm not trying to be the first to report because most times the first to report gives you inaccurate news. Most times, okay. Sometimes it's good to sit in the cut and watch so that you can look at who benefits the most, who benefits the least. Remember, a detective, when a detective looks at a case, they say, who does it benefit the most? Who does it benefit the least, right? And hold on one second. Okay, I don't even know how to turn this off. Okay, here we are. Hold on one second. All right, there we are. I'm sorry about that. But they do that so that they can find out who would be the likely suspect, who had motive, opportunity, right? And who benefits the most and who benefits the least. And when they set up a wall and they put up all of the the people who are suspects. And then from who benefits the most, who benefits the least, who had motive and opportunity, then they start making prime suspects, right? That's all you have to do when you're looking at this stuff. Who benefits the most from Ukraine being blamed for the crime? It's the United States. And who gets exonerated? The United States. And so you can put all of the pressure on Ukraine, and that means that now anybody in the Ukrainian government that was talking any kind of sense, saying, "Listen, maybe we should talk to the Russians." Now the pressure becomes immense on them to shut up and go along with the flow, because if you step out of line now, then they can say, "Well, you had the team of operatives that did it. See how this works? And this is an age-old tactic. The British used this better than anybody. That's where America learned it from, the Brits. And if you look, this is how they keep puppets in check. This is how they exonerate themselves, and this is how they can have plausible deniability. Because remember, I want you to understand the significance of the Nord Stream, and I'm just giving you this example. The significance of the Nord Stream is this: that this was not just an act of war and an act of terror against Russia. This was an act of war and terror against a NATO nation also. So not only did America plan, execute, and operate this as an act of war against Russia, but also against Germany. So, truth be told, if NATO was a legitimate organization, then Germany would employ Article 5 against the United States for a terrorist act, an economic act of terrorism, an ecological act of terrorism, and a political act of terrorism, and an act of war against the German federal state, and Russia should do the same. I mean, we're talking about law. We're talking about common sense here. But nobody talks about this. Excuse me. So, hay fever, windows up, it's hot, power off, going on my solar generator, removed one of the trees and a lot of the branches out of my yard. We've been hit with storms and tornadoes. And so I have a fan blowing because it's hot in here. I'm telling you, it's hot up in here. Let's see. So, and then look at this. So when America used that to put on Ukraine, right, it moved pressure off her. So now she can add more aid packages. Look what came after that. More military aid packages. Right? Now, if America truly believed that Ukraine did it, and she knew that this was going to stoke the ire of Russia and the West and the Eastern Bloc, she wouldn't carry through with that. She understands that nobody but the United States citizens are buying that crap that she has dropped. Nobody. I don't care how much you put body excrement on a cone, ice cream cone, and you can sprinkle it. You can put caramel. You can put strawberry. You can put anything on it. It's not going to make it ice cream. It's not. That's not how things work. But America would like for you to believe that, because see, that would justify if everybody knew, which most of the world knows, that it was America and probably Poland and a couple of her minions, then Russia is justified in economic and ecological terrorism on those nations. Right? As thou hast done, so shall it be done unto thee. That is an act of war. And if Russia does not necessarily have to escalate militarily, I'm talking military to military, they have operatives. They can initiate acts of eco-terrorism and ecological terrorism and economic terrorism and infrastructure terrorism. Why do you think? Listen to me good. I'm going to tell you some, and I want you to just. This is not conspiracy. This is something that happened, and I had it confirmed by three sources, I believe. 3 sources. I won't tell you who the sources are, but I had it confirmed because I went to them and I was like, "Hey, this doesn't sound right to me." So I want you to let's go down the Twilight Zone for a minute, okay? Bear with me, brother. Smile. It's a beautiful day, and remember to thank God for everything. You woke up today, and there's a lot of people who didn't. So you're blessed, okay? Now, and also let me say this, and things are not as bad as you may think they are. No matter how bad you may have it right now, somebody else has it harder or worse. So often think about that when you're going through trying times, okay? And that'll give you a little room to breathe. Now, let's go down this wormhole a minute with the United States and with the Western world, especially when we're talking about the terrorism Now, if you recall, Russia had warned the United States and warned NATO about supplying weapons and aiding Ukrainian terrorists, as they called them, Ukrainian terrorists, from about attacking Russian territory. Well, Ukraine attacked Russian territory, and they continue to attack. And in some instances, there were reports that the SAS, which is which is equivalent to the U.S. Green Berets, which is the British SAS, they said that the SAS was probably the ones who carried out the drone strikes against the Kremlin. Right now, we know that that's an act of war. How would you think that America or Britain would act if the Russian Federation did that to London, 10 Downing Street, or the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? How would you think the response would be? Right? But put that in your mind as we're talking. Let's look at something. They also said that it was the SAS that carried out that Kerch Strait, the bridge that was hit in Crimea, right? And then we saw a lot of buildings exploding over weeks, over a few months span, right? And we saw a lot of killings, assassinations that were going on across Russia and the newly acquired Russian territories. And then I kept saying this stuff, and people were talking about, well, it's the SAS, and Russia needs to strike back. And even I said it for a while, and then I thought about it. It made me start. And right after those things started happening on a major basis in Russia, there were a lot of chicken processing plants going up, boom, just going up all across the United States. Then there were a lot of manufacturing plants going up across the United States. And then the kicker was this, that every time you turned around, there was a train derailing that destroyed infrastructure, that destroyed or that took lives and all of that stuff, right? And so I asked this one person particularly, then I went and confirmed it with other people. I said, do you think that this is a response from Russia? Because these things are just happening, and there's no coincidences when it comes to things like this. Not on a major scale and not in succession like this. See, my mind starts to think, and I'm telling you, it just starts going. And they said, I'll look into that. Now I'll get back to you. Got back with me. Yes, there are some in the intelligence area that believe that. That's what I got. So I didn't get more. So I went and talked to someone else, and they said that they have it on good authority that some of this stuff was a response by covert Russian, I won't say agents, but people that were affiliated to hit back to show that you can be touched too. And then if you notice, when the derailings and the power plant, the chicken factories and all of these other things were burning up and exploding out the blue in the United States, do you notice there was a die down in that in the United States and a die down in that in Russia? Coincidence again? I don't think so, right? So there's not just a war going on in Ukraine. There's a covert war going on every level. And most of you don't know. Most of you don't know whatsoever. And if you see a little bulge in my shoulder, right here, I have something on my shoulder. In martial arts, I messed my arm up again. But yeah, I'm an old man still sparring with the young people. Let's see. Bruh says, let me put this on the screen. First, let me put Astro Atmospheres coming up that I did not put up, and then I'll put up Bruh's comment in a second. And I answered that for you. Let's see. And then I answered this one for you. And then let's go to Bruh. Bruh says, I always thought the deep state was burning down food plants because they want us to stop eating meat. Now, listen. Some of that probably would some of that probably was the government, but I'm telling you what was told to me. This was a message that you too can be hit. Because if you go back, I want everybody to do this. Don't be lazy. Go back and research the things that were being destroyed in Russia, and then go back and research in that same period of time all of the derailment of trains across the United States, the ammonia factory exploding or whatever, the chicken processing plants exploding. This does not happen by chance. For all of these things to happen successively, and all of them to happen on one side and on the other side, like following when this one explodes, this one explodes. When this one gets blown up, two gets blown up over here. When a train gets derailed over here, two gets derailed over here. That's not by chance. That is strategic. But the Western world, the Western media, and even people on the internet, listen to me good. You have a lot of CIA plants. You have a lot of, I call them alphabet intelligence agencies. You have a lot of plants that are posing as concerned citizens, concerned alternative media platforms. And they'll give you enough, and they'll start questioning the government, and they'll do all this stuff. And some of them are your favorite channels. They'll do all of that, and they'll have access to this and access to that. But the underlying issues that matter the most, they don't concern themselves with, because then they'll be in violation of the handlers of them. You understand? Have you ever wondered why out of the blue some of these channels go from having an audience of 1,000 and then overnight they're at 100,000? Have you ever noticed? And then they blow up to 2, 3, 4, 500,000. Have you ever noticed that? Huh? That's not by chance. Listen, I implore everybody. This is the one thing about this platform. Question me and question everybody else. Be skeptical of everybody and what they say. Do your own research to make sure that you're receiving the proper information. And when you do your research, get it from more than one source, so that you can do a comparative analysis. Right? That's what we used to have to do in real estate, a comparative analysis. We couldn't say it was an estimate when we were real estate agents, but we do the same thing as the one that's doing the estimate. And we call it a comparative analysis, which means that you're taking things that are comparable and you're laying them out, and you're coming up with a reasonable price for this house that you're about to sell. Well, you got to do the same thing with the news that is being sold to you, okay? Because people benefit off your ignorance. They benefit off of your ignorance, and they shouldn't do that. But hey, that's life, and that's the world today. So again, let me explain to some of the people who are here to check out Kevin Barrett. He hit me up and he told me at the last minute that something is going on with his family. I won't tell you which family member, but it's an emergency. Okay. And he had to take that up. S North, greetings to you too. Let me put that up on the screen also. So at the last minute, it was like 2-3 minutes to go before we went live. I had to really get on the other computer and just go into the dashboard and reschedule that show 2 or 3 minutes before live, and then just put up something so that I wouldn't leave anybody hanging, so that we can just do a on the spot, just freestyle Monday, so that we can address news and issues or whatever. So whatever is in your heart, whatever's on your mind, you can put it in the chat, and hopefully we can address it. Some things I want to address, but I might get deplatformed, as you saw when I did the show. What show was it? Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hold on one second. Let me see. Give me a second. And I'll tell you which show it was. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Let me go to my channel real quick. I'll tell you the exact show that got me demonetized. Even though they didn't say it, this got me demonetized. They still haven't given me a reason why I've been demonetized. Okay. Excuse me. But all right, here we are, right? All right, here we are. Not the super depression. What's going on here? Not the super depression. Let me go to the live. I believe it's a live. Yeah, it's a live. It was the news. I think it was the news roundup. Yeah, I think that's the one that got me demonetized and got me where they said, we're suspending your channel membership for a minute. We have to look into something, and we should hopefully by next week we can reinstate your channel membership or something. I'm like, huh? What? Anyway, it is what it is. So it was that show right there, because I spoke on some issues that everybody needs to hear. I think you need to go, and this was about issues that was going to make black people mad. This was issues that were going to make white people mad. This was issues that were going to make Jewish people mad. This was issues that was going to just tee off a lot of people because I spoke the truth. And a lot of times when you're speaking the truth to people in a bubble, they don't want it. Because truth, once it's shine on you, you're no longer in the dark, so you can't do your devilment. You can't do your devilishment. You've got to face the reality of what you're doing. And a lot of people don't like that. Black, brown, red, yellow, and white. They don't like that. But I don't care. I mean, I'm on this platform to give you the truth and also to give you some of my opinion. I'm also on this platform to talk and tell the truth and teach what I know, and to share with you different perspectives from the mainstream media and different perspectives from the so-called alternative media, to give you an outlet to say, hey, look, you know what? That sounds just about right. And if it offends black people, hey, it is. If it offends some white people, or some brown people or yellow people or whatever, it is what it is. I mean, everybody is in their feelings nowadays, and everybody is so sensitive about everything. And that's why you can't build a progressive society in America, because everybody is so caught up into themselves. This is the Western world, the way the Western world thinks. I am and there is none other. The people exhibit the same traits as the government. As long as I'm receiving the financial benefit, the political benefit, I care little about what's going on here. And don't tell me why it's there. Don't tell me that I had a part in it. Don't bring any of that to me. I'm living good. We have to address a lot of these issues that are touchy-feely issues. Your parents, as a kid, if you had a good parent, your parent didn't care if they made you mad. If you were in the wrong, they would address that, and they would tell you that. You might get mad, especially because I know my mom didn't care. She would tell you in a heartbeat. She would tell you in a heartbeat, and tell you in front of your friends and everybody else. Say, I got that kind of mom, right? And so I would get mad, you mumble up under your breath, and she'll say, huh, and nothing, because you wanted your teeth to remain in your mouth. You didn't want to get your teeth slapped out your mouth. So you mumble. And when she heard you mumble, you shut up. And so you'll be mad for a little bit, but you know that it was done out of love, and it was to correct you from your wrong. The same thing. But people don't want that nowadays. They want to live in la-la land. The world is collapsing right in front of you. The economies are collapsing right in front of you. The governments are collapsing right in front of you. And you want to remain ignorant to the reality of the time and what is taking place. What kind of sense is that? You say you love yourself? What greater love is there for yourself than for you to empower yourself, enrich yourself mentally and spiritually, so that you can be prepared for the things that are happening and the things that are to come? You say you love your family. Well, how can you love your family when you are refusing to look at different perspectives? It doesn't cost you anything to look at different perspectives. The more perspectives that you look at, the better you are to empower yourself so that you can get your family right, especially in the midst of an economic decline, the likes of which we've never seen. There was a report, a study that went on, and it was talking about, and this was like, I think it was like a little bit after 2008. I think the first study that was done was like 2009 or 10. Then they did another one that I was aware of in like 2013. Then they did another one after that. Then they did another one a year or so ago, 2 years ago, right? And the study was talking about the economic decline of the West and the economic decline of America, right? And in the studies, they were talking about how America is trying to mask her decline, and she is trying to hide it from the people. The government is trying to hide it from the masses of the people. And then they gave some numbers, and I remember this very clearly. And they were talking about the people in the bread lines in the 1930s, right? With the Great Depression. And they said if the United States was not giving out food aid, fuel aid, housing aid, and food stamps, that the food lines would make the Great Depression look like child's play. That it would be 10, 20, 30 times as long, going out miles for food. Now, a lot of people don't like that because it puts America in a bad light. But how can you save your family by ignoring the truth? How can you save your life if your life is in danger and you have ailments at home, right? And you say, oh man, my stomach is hurting. Oh man, my groin is hurting. I'm throwing up at night. And then your wife or your husband tells you, hey, babe, I think it's about time for us to go to the doctor. Let's get you x-ray. Let's get you checked out. Oh, no, I'm going to be all right. It's just a little upset stomach. And every other day you're going through that, right? And your significant one is telling you, let's go to the hospital. And yet you continue to ignore it. Now, you believe by ignoring it because some days might be better than others, that the problem is gone. But in reality, it is metastasizing. You think willful ignorance will allow you to escape the consequences of that which ails you, instead of you being empowered through enlightenment by the doctor so that they can get a treatment plan for you, so that they can help you recover and get your body recuperated from the cancer or from the ailment that you're suffering from. But the longer it goes untreated, unchecked, the more likely it is to become more terminal. This is what is going on in America because everybody is so preoccupied with self and everybody is so arrogant that the problems of America has metastasized to stage 4, stage 5 cancer. And what we're seeing is the outgrowth of that economic and political and cultural cancer, and it is eating away at the very body of the Western world. It is. There's no doubt about it. It is eating away at the body of the Western world, as a matter of fact. Let's go to something real quick. Let's go here real quick. Now, this is on the spot. This is on the fly, so you know that nothing this was planned. Now, check this out. This is from Michael Schneider, the Economic Collapse blog. And the article is titled, to many Americans, to many Americans, it already feels like we're in a deep recession. They hate to say depression. Remember, according to the dictionary, according to the definition, when you have multiple recessions in succession, it is no longer a recession. It is a what? A depression, right? If you have multiple recessions in succession of one another, it is no longer considered or classified as a recession. It is classified as a depression. Nobody wants to address that. Now, let us look at this. According to mainstream media and according to alternative media, we have had multiple, quote unquote, recessions since 2008, right? We're in 2023. So we say 2008 to 2018, that's how many years? That's 10, right? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, right? 15 years of recessions. And in the eyes of Wall Street, alternative media, mainstream media, CNBC, Fox Business, we're still in a recession. How is that even possible? I'm asking you. How can being in successive recessions since 2008, 15 years, not a depression? According to the definition of depression, they have thrown, not only are they changing the rules to the economic side of the thing, they're changing the definitions to the meaning of words. And nobody questions them on this. So we know that it was a meltdown in 2008. We knew, I used to have these, I would Google each year and see what they were talking about a recession. Google this, try this. Maybe Google haven't scrubbed the internet of this, but you may have to hurry up after me saying this. And I would Google recession of 2008, recession of 2009, recession of 2010, recession of 2011, recession of 2012. And I would go all the way up to last year when it was 2022, right? Now, to just see who was reporting on it being a recession that year. I did that to make sure that when I talked to you, that when I said that we're in a depression, I had the facts on my side. And so since 2008, we're up in 2023, there have been a recession every year. And according to the definition, when you have multiple recessions in succession, that is a depression, no longer a recession, it is a depression. Let's say the word together, depression. Now, we're going to read some in a minute, but give me 1 second here. All right. All right, let's see. Let's see what this is right here. All right. According to, let's see, we'll go to we'll put economic depression because we don't want to get it mixed up with just depression, mental depression. All right. Man, let me enlarge this a little bit to 100%. Okay, here we are. All right. Definition of it. Listen what this says right here. Now, I just put in this, I put in economic recession, and then it says 2023. I didn't put in 2023, but it popped up. Well, listen. Is a recession coming, recession or depression? Now, I'm just going to read the line under that, okay? And this is a quote. A depression is an extended recession or decline in the economy that lasts for years. 15 years. It's a depression, right? I'm telling you. But nobody, all of the prognosticators and the pundits and the alternative media, none of them wants to accept the reality of the time. You know why? Because they believe that, and they're hoping against hope, that everything will rebound back to its normal place. And I hear some of the, and they have good intentions. Some of the alternative media sites, and they'll be saying, well, if this wouldn't have happened, Russia wouldn't have done this, and we could have done this, and in the same video, they'll talk about the unfairness, injustice, and the corruption of the system. But if they did not bother Russia or they didn't do this, then it would have been okay. What the hell? Eventually, the corruption would metastasize like it has done. And the longer you wait, the worse it becomes. Is that not right? Why isn't common sense applied in analysis today? When people are doing analysis, why aren't they applying common sense? Why aren't they really talking to the people instead of talking down to them or talking at them? Talk to them. People will respect you more. Look them in the eyes and talk to them and give them the truth. And the ones that turn away, unsubscribe, let them go. They didn't want it. They weren't worthy of it from jump. But you got to be a man, a real man or a real woman, and look people in their eyes and tell them the truth regardless, even if it offends them. Tell them out of love. They may get mad, they may unsubscribe, and then as time goes on and events are happening in their life, they'll come back and say, you know what? That guy didn't mean what I thought he meant. He really had love in his heart. But he was speaking it in such a brash way that it offended me. But I understand. Let's see. Free New World. Thank you so much, Free New World. Good show. Thank you so much. But I'm just talking the facts. I'm talking to you all. See, these people, they don't talk to you. They talk at you or talk down to you. We gotta build up some type of level of rapport with each other, some kind of respect with each other. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. We should gravitate towards truth. Let's go to something real quick, okay? Let's go to this article. To many Americans, it already feels like we're in a deep recession. Boy, I tell you, they hate to use that word depression. Let's read a little bit of this article, okay? You can go to the economiccollapseblog.com and read part of this article. And if you hear me, my sinuses are messing up. It's hot in here. The trees are everywhere. The limbs are everywhere. Pollen is everywhere. It's humid outside, and it's sprinkling. It look like and the sky is gray, so it looks like we're about to have some more bad weather. And I got the windows up because I'm on my solar power right now. But listen, it says, are you deeply struggling right now? If so, I want you to know that you are not alone. The things that I am about to share with you are not meant to be depressing. Rather, I hope that you will be encouraged to see that there are countless others in the exact same boat. Over the past few years, the cost of living has been rising much faster than paychecks have. And this has put enormous financial pressure on millions of American families. Let's stop right there. He said over the past few years. Remember the definition of depression? When you have multiple recessions. And recessions are determined quarterly, right? When you have multiple recessions, he said years. According to the definition, it is no longer a recession. It is a depression. And we have facts that it's depression. Go into any store, you know it's a depression. When the Dollar Tree, which their motto was that they would never raise prices. Never. And now you have to go in there and it's $1.25. And 25 cents make a difference. Because if you buy 4 things, instead of you getting 5 things, you can only buy 4. And when you have a household of 6 people or more, or 3 people or more, that is a big difference. When you go in there now, the prices are $1.25. The packaging is smaller, right? And the amount in the packages are less. So in reality, you're paying more for less, which means that you have hyperinflation, regardless of what they're saying. Listen, if last year, and I'll just throw something out. If last year I bought a pack of ramen noodles, and the pack of ramen noodles had 6 in them, and the pack of ramen noodles was $1, they were $1, right? And this year, that same pack of ramen noodles with 1 minus 1, which means 5, is $1.65, right? You have a huge increase in price on top of a drastic reduction of product. That is inflation. That is hyperinflation, right? Now, let's go further. It says, and for those of you who may be new to the channel, don't mind me. I get animated about the truth. Don't mind me. I'm passionate. I like to get over my passion to you all, so that you can know I'm not a hustler. I'm not trying to stiff you for no donations. I'm not trying to stiff you to subscribe if you don't like the channel. No, I ask you, hit the like button. Consider subscribing. Consider being a channel member. I ask you that. You don't have to. I just ask it. You know, I'm not going to hate you because you choose not to. You know, we have the right to disagree, right? We have a right to choose our own choices and not have our choices made for us, right? So I'm not like that. So I'm passionate, I'm animate. So please forgive me. I really don't apologize for that, but please, if it offends you, forgive me for that. But I'm not changing. Listen, it says, over the past few years, the cost of living has been rising much faster than paychecks have, and this has put enormous financial pressure on millions of American families. In some cases, families are dealing with extreme financial stress, even though both parents are working good jobs. Virtually everything has become substantially more expensive, and so our money is not going nearly as far as it once did. Unfortunately, the mainstream media keeps telling us that everything is just fine. Now, not just the mainstream media, but a lot of alternative media does that too. And they want you to believe that there'll be a bounce back. Listen to me. I hate to break this to you all, but things will never, ever be the same. Ever. See, when you want the best for a person, you give them the truth regardless to whether they want it or not. You offer them the truth, they can accept it or reject it. So I'm offering you the truth. Listen, I know they have these feel-good stories about a bounce-back economy. I know they say, well, if we bring the troops home, that we can reinvest in America and we can do this. Listen, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. In every event, there is an inflection point. And we've reached that inflection point and past that, okay? Look at what inflection point means, okay? America is now on the downslide. The Western world, they're on a downslide because they didn't do right when they ruled. You understand? let me position something to you all, okay? Let me proposition something to you all. And let us look at the situation from a personal standpoint so that we can understand the situation from a national and international standpoint, okay? Now, say for instance, I hit the lottery. I'm $5 billion strong, right? And from this $5 billion over the years, I become arrogant. I change from my humble demeanor and I become arrogant. And I start getting in everybody's business. And I start demanding of others what I wouldn't demand of myself. And I start alienating people. And I start using my money to throw people out of the neighborhood, throw people out of the city, imprison people, execute people, demonize people by getting their information and spreading it and magnifying their shortcomings. As my money dwindles, because all of this takes a lot of money. All of this takes a lot of money. Over the years and the decades, my money starts dwindling because I didn't invest that money in tangible things, right? I didn't invest it in gold mines and in education of people. Because listen, if you have money and you get a school, say for instance, you're a billionaire and you build schools and you're educating the masses, you're educating them in the proper manner so that they can make a proper living and even become millionaires. Well, that you'll reap the benefit from one or two or more than that down the line. But I'm not doing that. I'm spending my money on causing havoc and trying to maintain my way of life and trying to show off to everybody that I'm the richest and I'm the best and I'm the baddest. Now, after a while, my bank account starts dwindling. And to keep up this air of me being rich, what little assets I have, I put them up so that the banks can give me a loan. Now, that is my collateral, the assets that I have, right? Now, I'm steady spending. My spending is growing now, but my holdings are diminishing. Over years, maybe decades, when I look and I can no longer do funny money bookkeeping, and I've alienated everybody, and I owe the bank this amount, and I owe that bank this amount, and I owe the credit card companies this amount, and I owe the credit card companies this amount, and I owe the credit card companies that amount. And I have alienated the credit card companies. I've alienated the people in the city, the people in the state, and the people around me. Anybody that can help me, I've alienated. And even as I'm falling, I'm still alienating them. And I'm still trying to destabilize people and throw people in jail and demonize them. Do you think there will be sympathy for me on my fall? Do you think that I can go to those very people that I did all that dirt to and ask for a hand out of the mud? Do you believe that I can rebound from that when I have alienated almost everybody in the city, the state, and I have no more assets, no more money? I become the laughing stock, right? And people will see you and then they'll laugh at you and they'll make mock of you because of the way you carried on beforehand. Well, that's exactly what America, that's exactly what the West. They've gotten themselves in something that they can't get out. Listen, a lot of people say it was the stealing of the money of Russia that was the catalyst for the fall of America and the fall of the Western world and its monetary system. That is not correct. That is not correct at all. It is not. That was it, that exposed it on a bigger scale, but the West had already had the catalyst by the overthrowing of legitimate governments, by the stealing of gold from countries that they made war against, from the economic sanctions that they placed on small countries, medium countries, and now big countries. Russia being a big country, politically, geopolitically, and economically, it shined more light on it, but it was not the catalyst for the decline of the financial system. The financial system was already taken. And America and the West knew it. So they hedged their bets. Maybe if we can break Russia, maybe if we can put economic pressure on Russia, we can destabilize Russia enough to neuter its nuclear capacity, and then we can put pressure on Russia so that we can balkanize it and we can get into those hydrocarbons, and we can price those hydrocarbons in dollars, and we can maintain this charade or this house of cards for a wee bit longer. Let's see. Let's go to free. I'll finish my thoughts in just a second. Let me go to the chat 1 second. Free New World says, what can we do to keep your show online for a long time? Listen, go to all the platforms. We're on Rumble. We're just trying to get this stuff. I'm just learning about this. I'm not tech savvy. I don't know about social media too much. You know, my son is setting this stuff up. So I don't know about all this stuff, but he does. And he's setting it up. We're on it's the empowerment of truth.locals.com. We're going to start putting up exclusive content there. The empowerment of truth.locals.com. Or you can go Red Pill Diaries on locals.com. It's the same. We're on Twitch, Twitter, Odyssey. What else? Just Telegram, and Rumble, and this place right here. If you like, let me put up. If you like, you can donate here. I don't ask people for that because I know it's a rough economic time. I know that. I know it's rough economic time. But let me see if I can find the banner. I'll put that up for a second. Here's a banner right there. You can donate there. I just don't like to ask people for too much due to the fact that we all are having it hard financially in this world. Even those of us who are doing better than others, we know that it's hard. You know, I do this for the love and the passion and any kind words of support, they help. Any financial support, that helps. But that's not why I do it. That's not why I do it. It's something in me that wants to enlighten people, because so many people, they're talked down to, they're taken advantage of, and that's not right. And if you're a God-fearing person, you can't accept that to be right. You can't talk down to people and expect people to just bow to that. These are grown men and women. You can't do that. I said, but what do I know? Bizarro World is doing all kind of crazy stuff nowadays. So that's on the screen, but I'm going to take that down in a second. Let's go back to my thoughts, and we'll go back to the article. Now, if you can't do that, what makes you think that America can do it? What makes you think that the West can do it? See, the reason that America has been on these military escapades for over 2 decades is because her financial system is shot. It didn't happen with Russia. Why do you think that the project for the new American century was talking about rebuilding the Middle East and North Africa? For the resources. They wanted to put Israel as the dominant power, and they wanted to balkanize the African states and the Middle Eastern states so that they can maintain hegemony over the oil flow and the gas flow and maintain it in dollar and in dollar denomination, which by extension means that the British pound would maintain value, which by extension means the euro would maintain value. That's why on every military escapade, you see Great Britain. On every military escapade, you see multiple European countries. Well, in reality, it's not really European countries. It's NATO, because the EU is only the political wing of the military called NATO. When they want to slide it in there, they'll say, France is deploying troops here, or Germany is deploying troops here, or Canada is deploying troops there. But in reality, those are components of a larger terrorist organization. And if you attack them or you defend yourself from them, they can invoke Article 5, which means that in reality, you're fighting NATO. But they know that the people, the masses don't know this. The masses really believe that it's just, over there, Canada's just deployed over there. Australia's in Afghanistan. Well, isn't Australia a part of NATO? Huh? Isn't Germany a part of NATO? They said, well, we're not going to deploy NATO to Asia. Then they said, what did the guard himself, Joseph Borrell, said, European nations need to deploy troops to the Asia Pacific. Didn't Mr. Gardner himself say that? Why didn't he just go out and say NATO nations? And then you had France come behind him and say, I don't think that's a good deal, a good thing to do. While deploying warships to Asia, France says it. Then you see Germany comes out and says, around next year sometime, we'll deploy warships there. Then you hear other nations in Europe say the same thing. But each one of those nations are just a component of NATO. And they're trying to strategically put it over as individual nations. But in reality, they're all components of America's plans for the pivot to Asia. Because America doesn't have enough warships, enough warplanes, enough weapons, enough missiles, enough missile defense systems to try to hem in China from its breakout capacity. So on the down low, it looks like it's a tug of war between China and America. But in reality, America is putting pressure on NATO nations to come in. That's why they just opened the office in Japan. They opened the office and saying they're thinking about opening. Why would you do that? I thought it was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, not the North Pacific or the South Pacific. It was the North Atlantic, right? So why is the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization getting involved in affairs in Asia? And they tell you that this is a defensive organization. Has China attacked any European nation? No. Has China attacked any NATO nation? Nope. Then what is defensive about the deployment of NATO assets to Asia? That does not make you a defensive organization. That makes you an offensive organization. Is that not right? Let me go to the chat real quick. I see some stuff up. Let's see. Hold on. Let me scroll down. YouTube is blocking me here. Let me go here real quick. Are they going to allow me to see my dashboard? All right, here we are. It said, oh, hi, CC. Thanks for joining the chat. It says, CC said tanks were on U.S. streets like places, like PA places and other places. I'm sorry. CC, could you put that back in the chat and tell me what the PA is for? I'm sorry. I'm a little slow on that one. Yeah, it's not you, it's me. But listen, they continue to say that they're a defensive organization. We're not going to believe what you say. What we're going to believe is what you do, how you act after you say what you say. Because you can tell a person not only through their words, but through the actions that follow their words. So if I say that I'm for peace, and then I go through the neighborhood fighting everybody, and that's not enough. I stay in my neighborhood, but then I rent a house in the city that's not too far from me. And I'm over in that city causing trouble. And I got another house in another city. And I'm borrowing from the neighbors in those cities to pay the mortgage on the house that I got in each city. And yet I'm fighting everybody in those neighborhoods. Is that defensive? Huh? Is it defensive? Am I a defensive person? No. I'm offensive. Because I'm offending everybody and I am aggressive with it. I'm not just doing it in my neighborhood. I'm going everywhere. And I'm trying to dictate to you how you should live, how you should govern. This is what sticks at me right here. Right here. America and the West often say that you have freedom, right? They hate us because of our freedoms. That's what they like to put over on you, right? They often say that. But yet, when you look at their policies, they only want one type of government, a democracy based off their fascist democracies. But if we have freedom of choice and we have freedoms and we're a different culture, shouldn't we institute the type of government that best suits us and that we know and are more familiar with? Why do we have to take on your government? Why do we have to take on your image and your likeness? You're not God. But the way the West deals with everybody, they deal with them as though they're the Lord and master of everybody, and everybody must conform to their beliefs, their government, their culture, and their dictates. And then you don't think there's war coming? If I come into your house and tell you how to live, slap your children up, and then plant a tent in your living room and tell you can't come in your living room anymore, you don't think that's war talk, war acts? But this is what the West does on a international level. And nobody hardly calls them out on this crap. And then when somebody strikes out, oh, that was an act of terrorism. You're in layers 2,000 miles away. Look at this. See, this is the mind of the racist, fascist, exceptional West. You're in Syria, the Syrian Arab Republic, against international law, against U.S. national law, and against Syrian law. So you have broken laws of your country, the Syrian laws, and international law. No congressperson, except one or two, is calling for the removal of the troops from Syria. Everybody is screaming about the territorial integrity of Ukraine and ignoring the territorial integrity of Syria. Everybody is screaming about the death in Ukraine. Nobody is talking about the deaths caused by U.S. presence in Syria. Exceptionalism. Now you're there illegal, and it's immoral and unethical, and yet you have the nerve to be on the news talking about Russia being unethical and immoral and aggressive, when the governments of Syria and Iraq both have asked you to leave. Do you see the exceptionalism? Do you see the racism? Do you see the fascism? Now, you say, well, we're there trying to fight ISIS. Hell, you the one made ISIS. ISIS is fighting with Western weapons, not with Russian weapons, Western weapons. How did they get them? Huh? There are multiple videos with U.S. troops taking ISIS members out of Syria in black helicopters to Iraq and vice versa, and into Afghanistan and vice versa. So how can you be against? Notice when ISIS was almost to Damascus, America didn't intervene. She says she's defeated ISIS. America did not intervene. Go look and tell me if I'm lying. America did not intervene. It was only after Russia intervened and America saw that she was losing her footprint and her plans were going up in smoke that she then deployed there to keep the Syrian Arab Republic from being whole again. That's terrorism. That's not fighting terrorism. That's being a terrorist. And then when the Syrians lash out and fight the U.S. troops, this is what America says when they get on the television. We have the right to self-defense. Okay, now we're going to use Western logic. Okay? We're going to use Western logic with that. I come into your house against your wishes, not even kicking your door, throw a brick through your window while you and your children are there. I come in there with a big machine gun, and I'm slapping your children around, and I'm stealing your resources out of your house. And you go to your room to get your gun, and I'm firing on, and you fire on me, and I tell the police, we have insurgents up in there. I tell the police, I'm in here fighting insurgents. How do you think the police will look at me? Huh? I tell the police, hey, I'm in here fighting these insurgents, these terrorists. Now I'm there illegally, and I'm stealing while I'm there, and I'm brutalizing the occupants of the house, and I'm giving them restrictions on where they can and can't go in their own house, where they pay the bills. And the father of the house is in the back room shooting at me, and I'm telling the police, I'm fighting insurgents. They're terrorists up in here. Common sense tells you that the police would fire on me, or at least apprehend me and put me in prison or put me in jail, right? Because I'm the belligerent one. I'm the one that's breaking into the house. I'm the one that's brutalizing and victimizing those people. I'm illegally there. Is that not right? Why don't you apply the same logic to America's presence around the globe? It is because you've grown accustomed to it. It has become acceptable for you. Now think about if Syria say, you know what? To hell with it. I'm not going to fight U.S. troops on my territory anymore. Russia, I need you to transfer about 4 warships and a helicopter carrier to me. And Russia does that, right? And then the Syrian Arab Republic send troops over and invade a little section of the United States. Would that be acceptable to you? Even if they said that they were fighting insurgents and they were fighting terrorists after America has, quote unquote, has been hit by multiple terrorist attacks, right? Would the American people stand for that? Would the American government stand for that? Would the UN stand for that? And all of the Western organizations stand for that? And by the way, would NATO stand for that? And if not, then why aren't you applying those same standards to the Syrian Arab Republic, to the Iraqi nation, to Palestine, to Mali, to Somalia, to Yemen, and to all of the surrounding areas where America is forcibly putting troops, weapons, warplanes, warships, and missiles there against the will of the masses of the people? Huh? It's because you've grown accustomed to it. Exceptionalism. The mind of the government permeates down to the masses of the people of America, and without them even knowing it. It does that. I'll tell you. Let's see. Let me go to something real quick. I see something on the screen. Hold on 1 second. Because YouTube is not refreshing. Oh, Pennsylvania. Okay, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Cece. All right. Tanks were on the streets in places like Pennsylvania and other. Oh, okay. Now, let's go back to the. I have to go off on little tangents here and there because sometimes, unless you make a person see it, it's one thing hearing it, but when you give a person an example that applies to them and they can put themselves in their shoes, in the other person's shoes, unless you can do that, sometimes they're detached from the reality of the moment or the reality of the situation. So that's why I give you analogies a lot. That's why I give you an example to show you the hypocrisy of the West. And again, I add this. I say this in my talks with you all, and I've said this before. If what America and the West are offering is so good, excuse me. If what they're offering is so good, then why do they have to offer it through the barrel of a gun and through threats and through sanctions? Because if it was so good, you don't have to force people to take it. If it was so good, you don't have to threaten people to take it. They would see the goodness in it and they would gladly accept it and then emulate it. But it seems like we have the exact reverse, right? That's something to put on your mind when they're talking about democracy, okay? Democracy. So let's go a little further in this article. It says, virtually everything has become substantially more expensive, and so our money is not going nearly as far as it once did. Unfortunately, the mainstream media keeps telling us that everything is just fine. They keep telling us that we should stop our whining because we haven't officially entered a recession yet. Remember what I told you? Remember what I showed you? And remember the definitions that I gave to you all? We have had multiple recessions since 2008. Acknowledged recession. There were recessions before that. But since 2008, multiple recessions. And we know that the definitions of a depression is multiple recessions in succession of one another. So even as he talks about entering a recession, there are others who say that we've already entered deep into a recession. But in reality, this is not the beginning of the end for this economic turmoil. This is the end of the beginning. And a lot of them don't like to address that. We are not in a recession. We're in a depression. And every economic barometer tells us so. All one has to do is go out your door, drive a mile or two, and you'll see homelessness. All one has to do is look at the statistics for what's going on in America today in stores where people are shoplifting because of desperation. There was one report, I think it was last year, where this old guy went into a bank. He robbed the bank. I believe it was, I think it was last year. Could have been the year before last. He robbed the bank. He left the teller, he got apprehended, but he robbed the bank and he left the teller a note. Said, I'm sorry, I wouldn't do this, but I'm about to lose everything. And this is the only way I could get some money. I promise when I get back, I'll pay this money back. What drives a man or a woman to do that? Desperation, right? So we know that a desperate person will do anything for survival, right? Almost anything. Does that not apply to desperate nations? And that is one reason why you see America, Great Britain, and the European Union now on their escapades around the globe and their escalations between China and Russia and Iran. because desperation. This stuff does not just apply to the person, it applies to the government, because governments are made of people. And people are the ones that give government direction. All right? So, oh, No Way Out. Oh, No Way Out is in the building. No Way Out says, he says this right here. I'll put it up there for you to see. The U.S. citizen has to stand up to end this corrupted elite, kick them out of office. The U.S. have no democracy anymore. It is an animal capitalism and corporatism. Now, let me address that. First of all, it says the U.S. citizens has to stand up to end the corrupt elite. I'm sorry. They can stand up. They should stand up. But again, let me give you an example to show you just how bad things are. We look at the system, right? And we talk about the elite. The elite just didn't spring up anywhere, and the system didn't spring up anywhere. So it's not just the elite. This is inherent. Because think about this. You have good people that go to government looking to change it, but they don't change government. Government changes them. So the people who set the system up, they set it up in a way like that. Okay? And so the corruption of the system eats away at the system. But guess what? The system comes out of the mind of the people. So you not only got to get rid of the elite, you got to get rid of the people that bag the elite and that are invested in the system. Because the system is inherently corrupted. And if you remove the system and leave the people will do what they are familiar with and rebuild that which you removed. Okay? So it's not just a small clique over here. These ideas permeate and trickle down to people who benefit from those policies. So not only do you have to remove the system, you have to remove the elite, and then you have to remove the people who bag the elite. One-step process. You got to get rid of it all, or else you just punch it in the air. That's it. Because it is so corrupt. It is so. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever wondered why that these presidential candidates, they all have these grandiose visions and grandiose ideas and plans, and they tell you on the campaign trail, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And when I get into office, they'll talk about their predecessor. But while they're on the campaign trail, they'll talk about we know we need to bring the troops home, and we know we need to do this. And when they get elected, what happens? They rarely keep any of their campaign promises, right? There's a reason for that. As the Russian president said, when U.S. presidents enter the White House, they are approached by men in black suits. And these men in black suits tell them what they can and cannot do and what they will and will not do. You understand? So it's much more than what the people put out to you. The whole system has to be removed and built from scratch. And it has to come out of the mind of people who are not wrapped up in the system. Because if you have people who love this system and who are wrapped up in the system, they're just going to rebuild what you remove. So you have to remove them and the system. You understand? Because if you remove the flower off the plant and you cut the stem of the plant, you leave the root there. Guess what happens within weeks? That weed grows right back, right? Is that not right? That's what I'm telling you. So, and then let's see. You say let's go to the next comment you made. You said, No Way Out says, the U.S. inflation will get worse. All the printed U.S. dollars who are traveling around the world are coming home. You better believe that. Because more and more nations do not trade anymore in dollar. And listen, that is one of the prime reasons that tensions are rising. That is one of the prime reasons that America is positioning herself for war. That's why Great Britain is stoking tensions of war with the escalation with these so-called shadow missiles, knowing that there's an escalation. What if Russia, what if Russia goes to Northern Ireland and provide them with Iskander missiles? Huh? I want you to look at this stuff, okay? What if Russia goes and say we're going to provide you with S-400s, Iskander missiles, and Su-35s, and the Bastion, a coastal defense system? So any ship by Britain or NATO that gets close to the Irish coast is sunk, because you have people in Ireland that want to secede. They want independence, right? So what if Russia did that? Would that be considered an escalation of war? Of course it would be. So why is it okay for America or Britain to give Storm Shadow missiles? Why is it not an escalation for America to give Ukraine F-16s? Now listen, it's one thing to give them that prior to before the war. It's another thing to give them that openly during the war. That means you have become a party to the war. That means that you are a participant. That means that now you can be a target according to the rules of law. Right? The rules of war says that. So, but think about this. There are places in the United States, in California, in Texas, and in certain other areas that want to secede from the Union. What if Lavrov started having photo ops with them, and he ignores America when America says we're not going to give you a passport for that, and he just flies on into Texas? He flies on into Texas with military escort and cargo planes full of weapons and warplanes. Will America view that as an escalation, as an act of war? I'm asking you these things because nobody ever puts the shoe on the other foot. What about if Russia or China? Let's go to China for a second. What if China decides to pull up historical facts and say, well, America, since you're aiding Taiwan, we know that Hawaii wasn't really a state of the United States. You bombed, occupied, and then annexed Hawaii against the wishes of the Queen of Hawaii, right? So we don't recognize your governance and your sovereignty over it. So we will now start supplying weapons to the original inhabitants of Hawaii. What do you think America's response would be? What do you think NATO's response and reactions would be? They would not just take that, right? Well, why do you think China and Russia should take what American NATO is doing to them? Because it's a historical fact that America invaded Hawaii, bombed Hawaii, and annexed Hawaii against the royal family's wishes. It's true. Look, go Google it and look it up. Okay? So China has more legitimacy to do that than America has with Taiwan. Russia has more legitimacy to arm the original inhabitants of Hawaii than the United States has to arm Ukraine. I'm speaking facts. I speak facts. Facts to power. All right? So let's go a little further. Let me highlight this one too, and then we'll go back to the article. Let's see. Oh, okay. No way. I said that's what I mean. Okay. Well, we're on the same page when we're talking about that. Yeah, we're on the same page. Let's go here. It says that means $136 trillion are going home. That's the money the U.S. Treasury printed till 2022 for up-road countries. Whoa. Check this out. So we talk about the money that America owes out. Let's get to something here. As I often say, Gregory Mannarino told me that the derivative markets, he said, watch the bond markets. That's what you need to watch. And it says that there's between two, and listen to this number because this is mind blowing. Because No Way Out said trillion. I'm gonna give you some. Gregory Mannarino says that there is between 2 and 5 quadrillion dollars in the debt market, the derivative market. Between 2 and 5. He told me that a year ago. Now think about how much more is in there. And you know what derivatives are? They are a bet against another bet. So this is a house of cards. This is what the Bible was talking about when it says in the day of thy downfall, none will be able to come to thy aid. This is what it was talking about. Listen, the GDP, and I remember this, the GDP a few years ago of the entire globe was $69 trillion, 60-some trillion dollars. Now they got it up. Last year they moved it up to 70-some trillion. They keep doing this stuff. That's funny money, book fudging and stuff like that by the West. Now they're saying it's $100 trillion globally or more, a little bit over that. Okay, now listen. America has, remember that clip I played you of the guy talking about America had $222 trillion in unfunded liabilities, debt. The professor, economic professor, I forget it, which he does bookkeeping for the government and for different organizations. And this was in 2010 or 2012 or something he did. I believe around that. At that time, it was $222 trillion in debt. Now, mind you, let us look. We know that everything is exponentially worse for the United States today. Okay? And then we look at the quadrillions in derivatives. Okay? Now, let's just give the global GDP $150 trillion. Okay? Let's be generous to them. $150 trillion. Even if every nation on earth used their GDP to help alleviate the financial stress of America, it is a mathematical impossibility. Because back in 2010 or 2012, it was at least $222 trillion for America alone. And now we're looking at an on-book record of $32 trillion in debt, off book of over $300 trillion, right? And 2 to 5 quadrillion in derivatives. Even if every nation on earth held hands to alleviate America's debt, it's an impossibility. And that verifies the biblical scripture of, in the day of thine downfall, none will come to thine aid. None could come to her aid. They don't have the financial wherewithal to do it. They don't have the financial capital, the political capital, or the military capital to come to her aid. That's what kind of debt she's in. That's what kind of trouble she's in. So when you look at America making all of these risky moves, and you say, why is she going for escalation? And then you say, it's the neocons or the neoliberals. And listen, it doesn't matter who is in the White House. We have what we call was once the unrivaled global hegemon. She was so powerful at the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union that she no longer used the term global power or superpower. She started using the term hyperpower because there was no one that could challenge her economically, politically, or militarily, right? And I'm not lying. You know I'm telling you the truth. So there was no one to challenge her at this moment. She became a hyperpower, right? Are we right? Are we clear on that? Now, let us look at her today in decline. She is begging nations to buy her debt. She had a debt sale recently that failed. It didn't make the news. It failed. They canceled it because they didn't have the buyers for her debt. You don't hear of these things. Listen to me good. She was once the global hyperpower. When you have been on this throne, you have been here, and everybody else has been here. And you see that not only are they coming up, but as they're coming up, you're going down. Guess what happens? Desperation sets in because you think yourself to be better than everybody. That's why you hear them in their talk on every, I don't care who it is. Every political candidate says America must lead. Why? Why must America lead? America must lead the world. America must do this. Why? Well, let us look. Let us see if she disqualified herself from being a leader as we address these issues. If we look at where we are today in global politics, global economics, and on the military footing, we see that there's never been as many threats of war and hostilities on the planet. We see that we have never been as close to thermonuclear annihilation as we are right now. We have never been in an economic situation the likes that are biblical as we are right now. And this was all brought to you by the leadership of the United States and the West. So if we're in this position and they acknowledge that we're in this position and they acknowledge that they're the leaders, so that means that they led us into this position. This disqualifies them from leadership, right? According to common sense. But when you rule so long and you're here and you believe yourself to be exceptional and everybody else to be beneath you, as you're coming down and they're rising up, desperation sets in. And remember what I said earlier, when desperation sets in, you're willing to do almost any and everything to prevent your decline and someone else's rise. Especially when you have done nothing but provoke, stoke, and pushed wars of aggression around the world. So when you see her escalating with the F-16, remember Joe Biden said, no, we cannot supply tanks and F-16s. That would mean World War III. And then as each plan that they had faltered and Russia dealt with everything they gave them, everything that Joe Biden said that would escalate to World War III, they're doing. And people saying, well, Joe is doing it, or such and such is doing it. It's the entire leadership that is doing it because America is falling. You understand? Joe is he's just the body. He's the zombie. He's the body, right? He's looking for brains. And the people behind the scene are the brains directing the body to implement policies to try to maintain Western hegemony. And because America is in decline, and her outlook is precarious at best, dreadful in reality, you see the Western world, not just America, but you see England or the UK or whatever you want to call it, Great Britain, Germany, and all of these other people latching on to failed policies and doing the insane, the once unthinkable, they're doing it. Why? Because they are invested in a parasitic system. This is how they derive their life, off the life's blood of everybody else. They must attach themselves to a host body. That's why they refuse to leave Africa. That's why they refuse to leave Latin America. That's why they refuse to leave Asia and Eurasia. They have to attach to something so that the garden can maintain its way of life. Isn't that what Joseph Borrell said? That Europe is the garden and we must keep everybody out. And then in the same note, he's talking about going to Africa to get resources. Well, if the garden's so good, won't you stay out of Africa? If you want to keep Africa out of the garden, you stay out of Africa. You stay out of Latin America. You stay out of Asia and Eurasia. Right? Since you think yourself to be better than everybody else. But when you see them implementing these insane policies, and you say, well, what is it? Germany is deindustrializing itself. It's insane what they're doing. Listen to me good. It is insane. But desperate people do desperate things. The system is collapsing one way or the other. It's going to collapse. It is underway right now. We are looking at and feeling the seismic changes going on right now. There's a paradigm shift underway. Well, no, it's not a paradigm. There are multiple paradigm shifts underway, economically, politically, and geopolitically. And when the West can't rule or dictate to others, they don't know how to govern themselves. They don't know how to govern themselves. They wanted you to believe that Latin America couldn't govern themselves, or Africans couldn't govern themselves, or Asians couldn't govern themselves. But we look at them. Look at the governments. Look at what they're doing. Look at the policies that they're implementing that are detrimental to their very own populations. This shows you that they are not able to govern themselves rationally. Because there's no way I'm getting a gun, coming in my house and killing my own family. That's what they're doing economically. That's what they're doing. And then when that doesn't work out, they use their terrorist arm, which is NATO. They vilify somebody. They find a mark. They vilify that person that they think is a mark. They use the media to browbeat them and beat them down. Then they justify, we must intervene for humanitarian reasons. We must promote democracy. We must do this for human rights. And in reality, they want the resources. They want to reconstitute the government in their image and their likeness. And they want an ally. Because these overthrows are not just about hydrocarbons and not about just dollar hegemony. They want to reconstitute these governments in the image and likeness of them. This is right. They believe themselves to be God. You can't tell me it's not the truth. Because we're looking at it. We can point to it, we can touch it, we can see it, we can smell it, we can taste it, and we can feel it. All one has to do is look at their actions. So they want to reconstitute these governments and reconstruct them in their image and likeness. Why? Here it is. They want to control. One thing, they want to maintain dollar hegemony. They want to control the hydrocarbons. They want to control the strategic waterways, airways, and land bridges, right? And then also they want to control the arms shipments and the arms manufacturing, because it's not a coincidence that all of the nations that America hit after 9/11, these nations had economic dealings with Russia, and they got a lot of military hardware from Russia. So when I destroy this country, not only am I getting the benefit of putting their resources behind my currency and maintaining dollar hegemony and maintaining some kind of commodities so that I can trade stolen commodities to maintain my military, but I'm also getting a new customer for my weaponry. Look what they're doing in Ukraine. We know that Russian weapons, now there's no fact, there's no doubt about it. Russian weaponry far exceeds that of the West, even though we were beaten down mentally saying that the West was so advanced over Russia. Now we see when they're on the battlefield that Russian weapons are far superior to Western weapons. And yet they imposed a regime, a Nazi regime on Ukraine. And the Ukrainian regime are turning down or discarding or having all of the weapons that were produced by the Soviet Union or Russia, destroyed or given away, and they're inducting useless weapons from the West. This goes on in Libya, Iraq, right? They try to do it in Afghanistan, everything. They want a new customer. Because if I can keep these people relying on me, if I sell them an AIDS package, or if I give them $3-4 billion in weaponry, and then I sell them $3 or $4 billion in weaponry. Now, I get to upkeep that. I get to say so on that. I get to control policies of that government indirectly because they rely on me for the upgrade of their weaponry, right? And for the overhaul of all of their armaments. So not only are I'm the parasites economically for their resources, and politically holding a gun to their leaders, but now I got control of their military industrial complex also. So I got money coming in any kind of way, and if they shut me off, I'll shut them off. And it takes tens of billions of dollars to redirect and go somewhere else and get weapons and then learn those weapons because it takes decades. And then now you become a has-been power. And by the time you learn those weapons and you finally start inducting those weapons, I got a guest coming in your house. ISIS, Boko Haram, what is it? Sherman, what the other ones, they make up all kind of crap, all kind of, and they always talk about Islamic extremism. They always, you know, it's crazy. We're going to read a little bit of this, but I want to address this Islamic extremism 1 second. Okay. To my Christian brothers, listen to me good. I want to give you something. Now, America trumpets herself to be the most Christianized nation on the planet. But we know that she's the bloodshedder because we can see it. She's in everybody's business, causing bloodshed, war, division, and collapse, right? She calls herself the most Christianized nation in the world. Was it Muslims who trained the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, or was it the so-called most Christianized nation on the planet? I'm asking. I need a little feedback here. Was it Muslim nations that trained Al-Qaeda and armed them and called them freedom fighters? Or was it the most Christianized nation on the planet that did it? And if it was the most Christianized nation on the planet that did it, then how can they be Islamic terrorists when they were trained by the most Christianized nation on the planet? Screaming Allahu Akbar doesn't make you a Muslim. Because Allah is just the name of God. God has 99 attributes like Jehovah, Yahweh, and all those. But when you want to say attribute is a name, the Almighty, the Great, the Beneficent, all of those, when you want to say all 99 names together, you say Allah. But they want you to think that that's foreign, right? When you want to say all and give God all this credit at one time, you say Allah, because it comprises all of the attributes of God, right? So saying Allah, you can be a Christian and say it. You can be a Jew and say it. Allah is just a name that encompasses all 99 names of God. Most people don't know that because they want you ignorant to that. Okay? Now, again, if we look at Rambo, in one of the Rambo movies, they gave credit to the Mujahideen of Afghanistan, and they called them freedom fighters. Go look at the credits in the movie. Go look at the credits in the movie if you think I'm lying. The Mujahideen is the Taliban and what is known now as Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. So they were armed and trained by Zbigniew Brzezinski and his clique, and you label them Islamic terrorism or Islamic extremism. How in the hell does that work? What about ISIS? ISIS just popped up out of nowhere. And they say that ISIS is an extension of Al-Qaeda. Well, who trained and armed Al-Qaeda and ISIS? All right? It's the United States, Great Britain, and NATO. We have proof of this. Russia has shown, Russia and Iran and China have shown multiple videos of them catching U.S. Special Forces flying terrorists out of Iraq, out of Syria, and out of Afghanistan from one area to the next area over there. So I'm telling you, and now they're flying them. If you hear the chickens, that's in my yard. The chickens are doing that little thing right now, but overlook that because I live in the country area, right? Chickens and all of this stuff. But anyway, listen. How does Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Boko Haram become Islamic terrorists or Islamic extremism when they have been trained, armed, and led by the West? I want to know that because nobody's answered that for me. If we are to be honest, if they have been armed, trained, and led by the West, then you have to call them Christian extremism, Christian terrorism, right? The Christian terrorists. Because America proclaims herself to be the most Christianized nation on the planet, right? Is that not right? So you have to put it in the proper context. Am I saying Christianity is terrorism? I didn't say that. I'm saying if we're going to apply that, we got to apply it right. because we throw around these words and we just leave them out there. We got to apply these things right. Everybody who's listening to this and who will listen to this, know that what I'm telling you is absolutely the case and absolutely 100% facts. But again, this goes back to what I'm saying. It was a plan to vilify and demonize Islam and to demonize the Muslim world because they had a greater plan. If you think I'm lying, go and look at the plan that they had that they brought up by what was called a project for the new American century. They wanted to demonize and vilify Muslim countries and African nations so that they can justify American power to go in there and bomb these nations and recreate or repurpose these nations and put in leaders that they like and that they control. Is that Christian? Huh? Is that Christian? I thought Jesus said you got to want for your brother what you want for yourself. Huh? Is that Christian? Well, if that's not Christian, then how can America say that she's a Christian nation when she's doing everything which is the antithesis to what Jesus said do? Huh? I'm asking these questions because nobody else asked them. Nobody talks about this stuff because they play hot potatoes with it. If the thing is too hot for them, they don't want to touch it. But how can you say that you're alternative media, and how can you say that you're for enriching people mentally and enlightening people when you won't address the underlying problems? You can't talk about ISIS and Al Qaeda and terrorism without talking about Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter, and the rest of them. You can't do it. Isn't Jimmy Carter a born again Christian? Well, that's the fruit of his labor. That's the fruit of his labor. Brzezinski was his national security advisor. Oh man, I tell you what. I'm just telling facts now. And if you go and Google the newspapers of that time, you would see them calling bin Laden and the Mujahideen, talking about the Taliban / Al Qaeda. They were calling them freedom fighters, champions of peace. That's what they were calling. Well, I tell you what. Let's go further. All right. It says they keep telling us that we should stop whining because we haven't officially entered a recession yet. But Deutsche Bank says that one is coming. In fact, analysts at the bank are now warning that there is 100% chance that the U.S. is heading into one. Odds of a U.S. recession have been hotly debated, with the labor market and consumer spending showing resiliency even after some of the most aggressive interest rate hikes in history. But Deutsche Bank sees 100% probability the U.S. will have one now. According to Peter Schiff, according to Mark Faber, and according to Jim Rogers, we're already in one. As a matter of fact, Jim Rogers and Peter Schiff are the only two people that I saw that would go so far to say that we are in a depression, and we have been in a depression, in line with what I have been telling you. Multiple recessions in succession is a depression, according to the dictionary. So how in the hell? See, they play word games with you guys. So how the hell can we be heading into one when we've already had multiple recessions in succession? That means we're already in a depression. And what we're heading into is a super depression. I advise all of you to go after this show to go look at the video that I did a few days ago called The Super Depression, the coming super depression. Go look at that video. And I got clips of Gregory Mannarino up in there and all that. Go look. You have to look at that. Okay. Super depression. That's what we're in. We're in a depression and we're headed into a super depression. And what I mean by that is food will be scarce. With your money, look, your dollar already doesn't get what it used to get. And with, as No Way Out says, with the influx of dollars coming home, that's going to cause a wave of hyperinflation, which means that your purchasing power will be eroded on a scale unlike anything that you have ever witnessed before. We talk about Weimar Germany. No, 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 no. Weimar Germany was not in a situation like what America is in. Remember that America is the largest and the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. Not just in the history of the last 20, 30, 40, 50, or 100 years, but she's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. What was the fate of those nations that preceded her in that title? Huh? What was the fate of those? They were relegated to the dustbin of history. Is that not right? So if we are going to be fair and rational, what does that lead you to think about the future of this republic? Especially, she's becoming more arrogant and more unhinged from reality and more forceful. What does that lead you to believe the future of the republic is going to be? Huh? That's what I'm asking. So let's go a little further. It says, if you want someone to blame, Deutsche Bank says that we should blame our policymakers because they created the boom bust cycle that we are currently experiencing. Now, listen to me good. What's amazing is the people who are condemning the system right now. I'm talking about those big pundits. All of them were found to be talking how great the system was when they were benefiting off the system. And we weren't so close to this super depression. All of them, whether it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, they were all talking about the greatness of the free market and the greatness of Wall Street and the greatness of Western economics and all of this stuff. And now you see them turning on it because you know what? Fear is in them. They see that what they have invested in is collapsing. So they have a lot to lose. They have a lot to lose. You think about these people who have billions and billions and billions of dollars when the dollars are no longer worth anything. They just have billions and billions and billions of pieces of paper. They have so much to lose. That's why you hear them now say, invest in something tangible. They didn't used to say that. They would say invest in the stock market and invest in this and invest in. Now they're talking about invest in something tangible like real estate and gold and silver and commodities and this because they understand that sooner or later your currency will be worth nothing. They understand that. So while you have some currency and while your currency that you have is worth something, put it to use for you. Get you the essential items that are needed. Now, I know a lot of people say, when this thing comes, you better have gold and you better have silver and you better have this. Listen, that's true. But the main thing you better have is food and water and medical supplies because you can't eat gold. You can't eat silver, right? You can't eat those commodities that you hold the title to that are out of the country. You can't eat that. This thing is going to be brutal. I'm telling you this. It's going to be brutal because think about this. This is a land where people are used to their so-called quote unquote freedoms. This is a land that has been number one in everything for decades. This is a land where privilege was afforded to the rich. This is a land that the world once looked at as the land of milk and honey. And now to have your freedoms taken from you, and now for you to have your wealth taken from you, and no longer being able to exert influence and power, and no longer being able to have the things that you once had. This will cause revolution in the streets. Because people will think of the things that they used to have and the freedoms that they used to enjoy. And they're going to start looking at the people who has caused the collapse of their financial order. They're going to start looking at the people who has caused the destruction of their financial viability and their riches. They're going to start looking at the people who they had in office who ignored their pleas and their cries for justice. They're going to look at those people. And these people that they look at, they're going to be looking to hurt, hang, and destroy those people. Because they will feel that those people hurt and hung their dreams. Listen, I thank each and every one of you for joining me for this edition of the Red Pill Diaries. It was off the cuff. I wanted to just talk to you all to let you know what's going on. We're going to have a live show. We're going to try to, if the power holds up, we're going to try to have one this evening. If not, we'll try tomorrow if the batteries on the solar system continue to pump out electricity, because it seems like these people are taking their time fixing the power in this area. So on that note, I want you to know that I enjoy everyone. Please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. And listen, if you know better, do better. If you know better, do better. Do better to yourself, for yourself, and to other people. Don't let America's policies be the example for you. Let God's love, God's patience, and God's blessings be the ultimate example for you. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. I love you if you love truth, but know that the true and living God, he will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous, because righteousness is the only thing that will pull you through in these dark hours and dark days. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you for joining.